What is up YouTube? This is Alex aka Foreign. Today I decided to put a Ryzen 7 1700 based system together. If you want to know more about why some parts are here and not others, then I'd recommend watching my previous video that I will link in the upper right corner here right now. But let's start off with the CPU. The Ryzen 7 1700 is currently the best bang for the buck 8-core 16-thread processor on the market. If paired with a good motherboard, it can be overclocked to around 3.94 GHz, which in performance will bring it very close to both the more expensive other Ryzen 7 CPUs and even the $1,000 6900K from Intel. To achieve that, we do have to pair it with a high-quality AM4 motherboard though, and at the moment the one with the least hassle involved would be the ASRock X370 Taichi. Hopefully in a few months all the other AM4 motherboards won't require much tinkering to get good performance too. Fun fact, AMD's stock CPU coolers this time are pretty freaking good. The Wraith Spire, AMD's stock 1700 cooler, is meant for dissipating only 95 watts of power though, so overclocking the chip past that will become problematic. If you don't want to push your chip to the absolute limits though, then the stock cooler will do a very nice job. But since this PC is meant to take max out of what the 1700 can offer, I included a fairly basic but still very decent cooler for the job, the Cooler Master Master Air Pro 4. That's a mouthful. Again, as I said before, the stock cooler will be just fine if you don't want to push your CPU to its absolute limits, but you will still be able to get a pretty decent overclock with it. Since Ryzen is based on AMD's Infinity Fabric technology that is very much connected to the speed of your RAM, I chose RAM that go up to 3200 MHz here. Now be mindful that the quality of RAM here won't matter as much as the memory controller on the motherboards. Getting this RAM to run at 3200 MHz with Ryzen will bring its performance much closer to the i7-7700K at 5 GHz, at the same time being miles ahead in all the content creation related stuff. Storage is pretty straightforward with this PC. A decent 240GB SSD for the OS and essential programs, and a 2TB hard disk for all the other stuff including games, movies, etc. Concerning power consumption, we shouldn't worry too much about that. Ryzen sips on power, especially compared to Bulldozer. Our total system power draw should be around 350 to 400 watts, maybe up to 450 when stress testing and fully overclocked, so we don't need more than a decent 500 watt power supply. This Seasonic 520 watt bronze rated PSU will do a great job. Now, cases are far more subjective than anything else. You can choose whatever you wish here, but I would go with this sexy gray Fantex Eclipse P400 mid tower. It has a little oomph with that faded RGB accent strip down at the bottom, a decent window to show off the system, and even dust filters. Even though the case comes included with two fans, I decided to add a second intake to the front to create that little bit of extra airflow and a slightly more positive pressure. Concerning the graphics card, if you have more money to spend, then a 1080 or even a 1080 Ti will also be very good for this build. But since this is aimed more at 1080p gaming, then an RX 480 8GB will do perfectly fine. The MSI Gaming X model will stay both cool and quiet and can probably achieve upwards of 1400 MHz on the core, which will add some significant performance. You can switch up this component to whatever you wish though, depending on your monitor, but for 1080p I'd recommend the RX 480. In total, our build came at around 1200 USD. It's not at all a cheap build, but we can call it an editing monster. This system will be on par with editing machines costing over $2,000 and will be able to game fairly well. Bringing the price up to around $1,600 by replacing the 480 with a 1080 Ti for instance, you will have the ultimate gaming machine for 1440p or even 4K. Just don't forget to overclock that RAM to give yourself a significant boost in performance. You can find the links to all the mentioned products down in the description. If you have any questions or suggestions, make sure to leave them in the comments down below. I also have a Facebook page where I regularly post interesting news articles and a Twitter where you can ask me questions as well. I thank you for your attention and hope to see you later.